What do we got here? We're about to have some fun, Mama's boy. You're gonna be my bitch. Let's do this.
Welcome back to my channel. Hope everyone's doing well out there. We are on to the New Line Cinema years of the Friday the 13th franchise. Although they were not allowed to use the title Friday the 13th, that's why all the New Line films, the 3 films that they made, was Jason Goes to Hell, which is one we're going to talk about today, Jason X and Freddy vs. Jason, because Paramount still owned that title. They were allowed to use Jason's name, the character, Crystal Lake, but they weren't allowed to use Friday the 13th, the title, for a film. So that's why this one's called Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, which is laughable now. It was even laughable at the time, especially if you remember the ending of this film, which I'm sure you have. But anyway, this film came out 4 years after Jason Takes Manhattan. As we discussed in Part 8's review, Jason Takes Manhattan was a major disappointment for the studio. They gave the rights back to Sean Cunningham, and he took them to New Line Cinema, which was kind of a good home for this project because, as we discussed back in Part 6, Paramount and New Line wanted to get a Freddy vs. Jason film made. They couldn't make it work out. Now that Jason was under New Line's banner, they could make that movie, although unfortunately it would be another 10 years after this film before we'd see that film, but we got Jason Goes to Hell. And this film came out August 13th of 1993. I actually talked my parents into taking me to see this opening weekend because I was excited about this film. This film's an hour and 27 minutes long. Unrated Cut's about an hour 28, hour and 29. Had a budget of $3 million, and upon release in August, it made $15.9. So it did make more money than Jason Takes Manhattan, but still wasn't the big hit New Line Cinema was hoping for, although it did make some money. Now, Sean Cunningham had no intentions of writing or directing this film, so he actually, somebody that was a friend of his son and hung out at their house a lot in Connecticut, he gave the job to him. He was an up-and-coming screenwriter and director, Adam Marcus. He helped write the story, and he directed this film. And John D. LeMay plays Steven in this film. John D. LeMay was actually in Friday the 13th, the series, and he plays the male lead here. Carrie Keegan plays Jessica. She is Steven's ex-girlfriend, and her mom is played by Erin Gray of Silver Spoons fame, if you remember that show. The great Stephen Williams plays Creighton Duke, and he is always fantastic, and he's fantastically over the top here. And Kane Hodder is back as Jason and one of the SWAT team members, because we actually get to see him without the makeup on in one funny scene. And I remember being psyched about this film. The trailer looked awesome. Jason looked badass. I like the design of Jason in this film. It's not my favorite, but I do like the design of Jason in this film. He's kind of like grotesquely, his skin has melted around the hockey mask in this version. And KBFX did the makeup effects in this film. And there's some great makeup effects work done in this film. So there's some great gore gags, especially in the unrated version. Don't bother yourself with the theatrical version. The unrated cut's the only one to watch, honestly. And I remember my parents took me opening weekend to see it in Frackville, Pennsylvania. There was a theater up there in the mall. And I remember the movie opens up with that girl who's from Roadhouse, by the way. She was the blonde in Roadhouse that wanted Patrick Swayze, but he blew her off. She is the girl in the beginning of this film, and she shows up at this cabin at Crystal Lake. And Adam Marcus does something pretty cool here in the first 10 minutes of the film, or 5 minutes, however long the scene plays out. Everything that's usually typically in a slasher is in this first opening scene of the film. The lights go out, so she has to go out into a shed by herself in the dark and find a light bulb. She's getting undressed to go and get a shower, which is usually equals death in these films. She opens the mirror to the medicine cabinet and closes it, and the camera flashes, but nobody's there. So they definitely put the tropes of the genre in the first opening scene. And then Jason does show up in all his glory, and we have a chase scene between Jason and this woman, and she's running through the woods, and she dives what we think is a rock, and here it's actually a SWAT team guy hiding under a black blanket. These lights come on, and they start shooting the shit out of Jason Voorhees, and then eventually blowing him up into smithereens, into 100 pieces on the ground. And when I saw this in theaters, I thought it was amazing. I still think it's a really good sequence, and I was psyched in this film, or in the theaters that day, and the theater was charged. It was packed. Everybody was excited. They were clapping. But then I realized, after the afterglow of that scene, I'm like, well, how the hell are they going to bring him back? They just blew the shit out of him in the first 10 minutes of the film. And then my disappointment, and actually my hatred of this movie started, because We get that scene in the morgue with the morgue attendant, which is a funny scene. He says some funny things. We get to see Kane Hodder without the makeup on when, well, we'll get there in a second. And when the heart starts beating and the morgue attendant's standing there with it in his hand and he's looking at it and he eats it, and I remember saying this in the theaters and my mom and dad were sitting next to me and it gave me a look. I go, what the fuck is going on? And my mom's like, watch your mouth. And I was in disbelief at the rest of the film because Jason's not in 90% of the film, 95% of the film. And I'm like, I was miserable the rest of the film until the end, the last 5 minutes when we get Jason back. I'm like, how could it have gone so wrong? How could it have gone off the rails like this? This is a Jason movie. Where's Jason? And we have it's body hopping. And not till years later I realized, well, it's just like the goddamn Hidden if you've ever seen that film. And I still don't like the body hopping aspect of this film, but I hated this movie for years. It took me a long time. I see the Unrated Cut. It still took me years to actually be able to appreciate this film. I'm not saying this is a good film by any stretch of the imagination, but let's continue along with the plot. So the morgue attendant eats the heart. He becomes Jason. Jason inhabits his body. He has all the strengths of Jason. He just doesn't look like Jason. And he goes out in the hall to leave, but he kills the other morgue attendant. And Kane Hodder's standing there, and he's like, "Oh, don't worry, Doc. Jason was nothing but a big old pussy anyway." And it's a funny scene because Kane Hodder plays Jason, and he's making fun of Jason. It's a funny scene. There's some funny moments in this film. We're introduced to Creighton Duke, and he's been hunting Jason for a long time. We actually see him after the SWAT team blows him up in the bushes. He's like, "I don't think so." It's very on the nose, very over the top, this film, no doubt. It's not meant to be taken too seriously. And over the years, I've come to appreciate this film by not taking it seriously and just having a fun ride with it, a fun gore-filled ride. Yes, it's dumb. There's some dumbass shit in this film that doesn't make any sense at all. Like a lot of these films, especially Part 8. But anyway, and then we're introduced to Steven and Jessica and her mom, Diana, and this Crystal Lake is, still there, and there's a town there, and pretty soon, after the morgue attendant leaves, he starts killing people. And we get one of the best kills in the whole series and the best kill of this whole film, the tent scene where the girl's having sex with the guy and she's on top, and Jason splits her up the middle with that street sign. And she splits open and blood goes everywhere. That's a fantastic kill. The movie's worth watching just for that kill alone. And then after that, Jason keeps swapping bodies because we find out through Creighton Duke giving us all the exposition we need. Why this is going on is his body deteriorates quickly, so he has to hop to another body. And we see him hop a few times, like this slug comes out of his mouth, goes into somebody else. If you've ever seen The Hidden, it's right out of The Hidden, although Adam Marcus claims he never saw The Hidden before he wrote this film. But you can see the similarities for sure if you're a fan of The Hidden. And if you've never seen The Hidden, check that movie out. That movie kicks ass. And anyway, we get more plot. We find out from Creighton Duke that it takes a Voorhees for Jason to be reborn. It has to take over. The worm has to go into a Voorhees so he can be reborn as Jason, as we all know and love him. And a Voorhees is the only one that can kill Jason. Now, this is where... Now, this franchise is... The continuality of this franchise hasn't really meant much through most of it. But we do know, if you're a fan of the series, that Jason can be killed by somebody other than a Voorhees. He was killed by Tommy Jarvis in Part 4. And it wasn't until Tommy Jarvis fucked up in being a Part 6, Jason was deader than shit. So that's a plot hole right there. I don't mind him adding things to the lore at this point because basically we've already been through 8 films. This is the 9th one. But that one doesn't... That always kind of grated on me. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But anyway... We get some terrific makeup effects work by K&B, some really gory kills, the Unrated Cut. Don't even bother with the theatrical cut. We get that diner shootout where Jason, his inhabitation of somebody else's body kills a bunch of people in his diner in very gruesome and cool ways. And then we get our final showdown where the worm makes its way back into the dead body of Diana. And we get Jason back for the last 5 minutes where he has a Royal Rumble with Steven. Although we all know he would have killed Steven in 30 seconds. Why Jason just throws him around through this sequence, I don't know. And then Jessica takes the dagger that looks like a lot like the Cartharian dagger from Evil Dead, which Adam Marcus says it was meant to look like that. Stabs him in the chest. All these light beams come out of his chest, and this light comes down from the heavens, and these big hands come up and pull Jason down to hell. and Steven and Jessica walk off into the sunrise, and then we get that famous last shot that got everybody psyched up for Freddy vs. Jason when Freddy's glove comes up, grabs Jason's mask and pulls it down as Freddy laughs manically, which actually Kane Hodder actually was the hand that was in that glove. So Kane Hodder is the only person that ever played Jason Voorhees and Freddy Krueger. I thought that was pretty cool. Now, rewatching this last night on my Scream Factory unrated Blu-ray, I did notice one thing with the cut that's on there that they say is unrated. It is the unrated version, but there was one gore moment that was cut out of that version that I watched last night. And it's the moment where the son of the diner owner walks across to the police department, and the guy that's Jason's inside at the time walks up to him, and in the unrated cut from my DVD that I have, he grabs his fist and snaps it down and his forearm bones come out and they show it. In this version I watched last night, they cut away from that. So I don't know why that little shot isn't in the unrated version on the Scream Factory Blu-ray. If anybody knows, leave a comment down below and let me know, but it's not there. I even went back and rewatched it to make sure I didn't miss it. But it's not there. They cut away for sure, and I was kind of bummed out by that because I love that shot. But anyway, again, I hated this movie for years, and I watched it a few different times around it from the video store. I've become to appreciate it. Is this a good film? No. Is it entertaining? Yes. If you just turn your brain off and realize you're not going to see Jason Voorhees for a good chunk of this film and just go along for a gory, fun-filled ride, you can have a good enough time with this film. It's nowhere near the best Friday the 13th film, and it's not even middle of the road. It's better than Part 5, and it's way better than Part 8. I'd even say this is better than Part 7 on my entertainment level, but it's nowhere near the first 4 or 6. Adam Marcus, I mean, I like the go-for-broke attitude they had. They threw everything in the kitchen sink in this film, and to see what stuck, I get what they were going for. I don't think it all works. Well, the ending when the big hands come to grab Jason wasn't the original way that was going to go down. These little demons were going to come up. I actually have a photo of it. I went to a Fangoria convention, and the gentleman who did a lot of the visual effects for the film was there. And I bought this photo, and he autographed it for me, and it shows the demons that were going to grab Jason. But they scrapped that and went with the big hands instead. The Necronomicon is in this film. Stephen actually picks it up from the Evil Dead because Adam Marcus wanted to tie Jason to the Deadites. And he actually asked Sam Raimi if he could borrow the Book of the Dead, and Sam Raimi gave it to him. And it's in the Voorhees house in their dining room, and Stephen picks it up and pages through it a little bit. That's why it's in my intro. And the dagger is supposed to look like the dagger from the Evil Dead. He was trying to connect it, although at one point they were talking about it, but Sam Raimi and Rob Tappert and Bruce Campbell decided not to go, that would, team up with New Line on a film that would kind of connect the film franchises, which I think was a smart move. Although I could see how you can get there in making Jason a Deadite kind of, but I'm glad they kept this franchises separate. We only needed one franchise matchup, and that was Freddy vs. Jason, which we got 10 years later. Overall, you can have a good enough time with this film. There's some really great gore gags. It moves at a brisk pace. It's only an hour, even the unrated cut's only like an hour and 28, an hour and 29 minutes long. I like the look of Jason. They definitely Kane changes it up a little bit when he is on screen, although that's one of my major downfalls. He's not on screen enough. And we're looking at regular people pretending to be Jason. Thank God the kills are entertaining, and there's plenty of them throughout the film, and we get that awesome 10 kill. But overall, I've come to appreciate this film for what it is. It's a pulpy, hardcore slasher film that's not meant to be taken too seriously. There's a lot of dumb shit that don't make a lot of sense. I think the Creighton Duke character is awesome. I wish he was in the film a little bit more. I think he gets sidelined a little too much. I like John D. LeMay in the lead, though. I always liked him on this series. He's good here. Aaron Gray is always nice to see. All the actors do good with what they're given to do. At the end of the day, though, I would give Jason Goes to Hell a 6.5 out of 10. I think it's a decent entry. They try to do something a little different. I think where they went wrong was no Jason on screen for 95% of the film. I know that's most people's problems, besides some of the plot holes, and there's many in this one, but I can forgive the ones in this one because the film's a lot more entertaining, for sure, than Jason Takes Manhattan. Jason Takes Manhattan was a slog to get through. There's no suspense, there's no fun. At least this movie brings the fun, and I had fun with it once again watching it. So yeah, 6.5 out of 10 for Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday, which is funny. What are your thoughts on this movie? Leave a comment down below, let me know. Hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, share this video, I greatly would appreciate that. I'll be back soon with a review for a little aquatic horror film called Deep Star 6, which actually was directed by Sean Cunningham. But until then, I hope you're all doing well out there, and bye.